HOA filled my well with cement, so I froze their water contract with the city. Asterisk, they're destroying everything I built. I roared, my voice echoing through the backyard as I stared at the unforgivable crime before me. My name's Jake Thompson, a 38-year-old single dad living in Pinewood Estates, a cookie-cutter suburban neighborhood just outside the city. For years, my backyard well was my lifeline, a symbol of independence in a world choked by rules, bills, and nosy neighbors. That well wasn't just a hole in the ground. It was my rebellion against skyrocketing water rates, a way to keep my vegetable garden thriving, and a legacy I planned to pass to my 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Every summer, we'd sit by that. Well, her tiny hands splashing water as we dreamed of turning our garden into a mini farm, but now it was gone. It's filled with cold gray cement by the Pinewood Homeowners Association, the HOA from hell. My heart pounded as I read their letter, taped to my front door like a slap in the face. Non-compliant water source removed per community bylaws. Non-compliant?
Oh, this was personal.
And I was ready to burn their precious community standards to the ground. Let me paint the picture. My house was a modest 2-story, bought after years of saving and a messy divorce. The backyard was my sanctuary, a patch of green with raised garden beds, bursting with tomatoes. Zucchini and sunflowers. Lily planted herself, the well tucked. Behind a wooden fence was a 30-foot deep marvel, dug decades ago by the previous owner. I'd had it tested, maintained, and certified safe by the city. It saved me $500 a year on water bills, money I put toward Lily's art classes. The HOA knew about it. Tita disclosed it when I moved in 5 years ago. I never said a word until last month, when a new board took over, led by Karen Whitaker. It's the kind of person who'd report you for a crooked Christmas light. Karen's. Rain brought a wave of petty fines. $50 for a slightly faded patio umbrella. $100 for parking my truck an inch over the driveway line. But this? Pouring cement into my well without a warning, a permit, or even a knock on my door? This was war. The morning I found out, I was sipping coffee, planning to water the garden before taking Lily to school. I stepped outside, hose in hand, and noticed the fence gate ajar. Odd, since I always locked it. Then I saw it. The well's wooden cover was off, and a thick, wet slab of cement stared back at me, mocking my years of care. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the HOA's letter, my hands shaking so hard I nearly tore it. For the community's aesthetic and safety, it read, citing a bylaw I'd never seen in the 200-page HOA handbook. Aesthetic? The well was invisible from the street? Safety? It was fenced and locked. I called the HOA office, but got voicemail. I drove to their clubhouse, a gaudy building with fake marble pillars, only to find it locked. A neighbor, Mr. Patel, saw me fuming and whispered, "Karen's been bragging about cleaning up the neighborhood." That's when I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was a power trip. I went home, sat on my porch, and stared at the garden, now doomed to wilt. Under city water rates I couldn't afford. Lily came out, her braids swinging, and asked, "Why is the well gone, Daddy?" Her big brown eyes broke me. I hugged her, promising I'd fix it, but inside I was a volcano. The HOA didn't just steal my water, they stole my daughters. Dreams, my pride, my control. I wasn't some pushover they could bully with fines and letters. I had a secret weapon, my job at the city's water department. For years, I'd processed contracts, audited permits, and rubbed elbows with decision makers. The HOA didn't know who they were messing with, but they were about to find out. I vowed to hit them where it hurt their wallets, their pride, their precious, perfect community. This wasn't just about my well anymore. It was about every homeowner they'd ever trampled. I was going to freeze their water contract with the city and watch their world crumble. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, I turned my cramped home office into a command center. My desk was buried under coffee mugs, sticky notes, and my laptop, glowing with city database logins. Rage fueled me, but I needed evidence to strike back legally. My job as a mid-level administrator at the water department gave me access to records most people never see: contracts, permits, compliance reports. The Pinewood HOA relied on a bulk water contract with the city. A sweetheart deal that kept their manicured lawns, Olympic-sized community pool, and tacky fountains running cheap. If I could find a crack in that contract, I could make them bleed. But I had to be smart. One wrong move could cost me my job or land me in court. So I started digging, and what I found was a gold mine of arrogance and negligence. I pulled up the HOA's contract. A dense 50-page document was set to expire in 2 weeks, needing my department's approval for renewal. Perfect timing. I cross-referenced their billing history and found they'd been dodging maintenance fees for years, exploiting a loophole that let them defer payments indefinitely. That alone was grounds for a review, but I wanted more. I scoured city archives, pulling late-night searches on my secure login. Emails flew between me and a trusted colleague, Sarah, who'd worked in compliance for a decade. "Jake, these guys are sloppy," she texted at 2 a.m., linking me to a folder of ignored city notices. The HOA had been warned 3 times too. They'd blown off every notice, assuming their contract was untouchable. The deeper I dug, the dirtier it got. I found a 2019 audit where the HOA underreported their water usage, shaving thousands off their bills. Another report flagged their pool's filtration system as non-compliant, risking public health. Each violation was a dagger I could twist, but I needed to tie them together into an airtight case. I printed records, highlighted key passages, and built a timeline of their negligence. My office looked like a detective's lair, with papers pinned to a corkboard. Lily peeked in one morning, asking, "Are you catching bad guys, Daddy?" I smiled, ruffling her hair. "Something like that, kiddo." But inside, I was a man. Obsessed. Karen's smug face haunted me, and every document I found felt like ammunition. The final piece fell into place when I discovered the HOA's contract renewal required a clean compliance record. Their violations gave my department leverage to delay or deny it. I wasn't just going to stall their contract I was going to bury them in paperwork and watch their perfect community unravel. But I had to play it clean. I couldn't let anyone suspect I was driven by revenge. So, I drafted a memo for my boss, framing the HOA's issues as a threat to the city's water grid. Their inefficiencies could strain our resources, I wrote, knowing it would hook Diane, who loathed entitled HOAs. Every step was calculated, every move by the book. As I hit send on that memo, I leaned back, heart racing. The HOA had no idea what was coming, and I was just getting started. With a stack of evidence thicker than Karen's rulebook, I was ready to spring my trap. But this wasn't a smash and grab. I needed precision to take down the HOA without leaving fingerprints. My position at the water department gave me power, but one misstep could cost me. So I crafted a strategy that was airtight, legal, and deliciously ruthless. The goal? Delay their water contract renewal so their bills would skyrocket, forcing them to feel the pain they'd felt destroying my well. But I'd do it by the book, hiding my vendetta behind the city's bureaucracy. Every move had to look routine, every action above suspicion. I wasn't just fighting for my well, I was fighting for every neighbor crushed by the HOA's entitled grip. I was going to enjoy watching them squirm first. I flagged the HOA's contract for a routine audit in our system. This was standard for expiring contracts, so no one batted an eye. Drafted a memo for my boss, Diane, a known-sense manager who'd once called HOA's suburban dictators. I framed the audit as a public service, citing the HOA's unpaid fees and wasteful irrigation as risks to the city's water grid. Their negligence could strain our resources, I wrote, attaching a 10-page report of their violations. Diane skimmed it, muttered, "Typical HOA nonsense," and gave me the green light to delay the renewal pending a full investigation. Step 1, complete. The HOA wouldn't suspect a thing yet. Next, I weaponized paperwork. I drafted an official letter to the HOA demanding a mountain of documents, 5 years of water usage logs, maintenance records, proof of irrigation upgrades, and a compliance report for their pool. The deadline? 7 days before their contract expired. I knew their board disorganized, arrogant, and reliant on a part-time secretary wasn't equipped to handle it. Sarah helped me word the letter to sound neutral but punishing, ensuring every request was legally justified. We sent it via certified mail, so Karen couldn't claim ignorance. I pictured her opening it, her smug smile fading, as she realized the city wasn't playing her games. To cover my tracks, I played the good neighbor. I RSVP'd to the HOA's next meeting, held in their clubhouse's stuffy conference room. Wore a polo, smiled, and shook Karen's hand, hiding my disgust as her perfume stung my nose. "I'm sure we can resolve the well issue," I said, loud enough for neighbors to hear. Karen nodded, dismissing me with a wave, but I saw her eyes flicker. She thought she'd won. Meanwhile, I was coordinating with Sarah to escalate the audit. We added a surprise inspection of their irrigation system, scheduled for the day after. The document deadline they failed on, their contract renewal would stall indefinitely. I also looped in our department's legal advisor, Tom, to ensure my actions were bulletproof. "Just doing due diligence," I told him, showing him the HOA's violations. Tom nodded, saying they'd been skating by too long. His approval gave me cover if the HOA tried to fight back. Every night I reviewed my plan, checking for cracks. I couldn't afford to let emotion cloud my judgment. Lily noticed my late nights, asking, "Are you okay, Daddy?" I hugged her, saying, "Just fixing things, kiddo." But inside, I was a coiled spring, ready to unleash chaos. The final touch was psychological. I dropped hints to neighbors about the HOA's water issues, framing it as gossip. "Heard the city's cracking down on their contract," I said casually at a block party. Word spread, and by the next meeting, residents were whispering about rising bills. HOA was on edge, but they had no idea I was the puppet master. As the contract's expiration loomed, I sat back knowing I'd built a trap they couldn't escape. They thought they could bully me, but I was about to turn their world upside down. The day the HOA's water contract expired, Pinewood Estates descended into chaos, and I savored every second. Without their bulk rate deal, their water bills tripled overnight, hitting them like a freight train. The manicured lawns that Karen bragged about turned into patchy brown wastelands. The Olympic-sized community pool, a status symbol for the HOA's elite, shut down, its water cloudy and stagnant. The gaudy fountains at the neighborhood entrance. Karen's pride and joy went silent, their dry basins collecting leaves and trash. Residents, used to their picture-perfect community, were livid. Emails flooded the HOA's inbox. Voicemails piled up, and the clubhouse's suggestion box overflowed with angry notes. It was glorious. The HOA had crushed my well, my pride, and my daughter's dreams. Their perfect world was crumbling, and I was the invisible architect of their downfall. The chaos unfolded faster than I'd imagined. By day 3, social media was ablaze with complaints. The Pinewood Estates Facebook group, usually filled with Karen's posts about approved flower beds, became a battleground. "Why are our bills $300 this month?" one resident posted. "The pool's closed. My kids are heartbroken," wrote another. I scrolled through, sipping coffee, my heart racing with a mix of guilt and glee. I'd planted the seed at a block party, casually mentioning water contract issues to neighbors. The rumors spread like wildfire, and by the next HOA meeting, the room was packed with furious residents. Karen stood at the podium, her usual smugness replaced by a nervous twitch. "It's the city's fault," she insisted, blaming bureaucratic delays. Her voice cracked as she deflected questions, but the crowd wasn't buying it. "Fix this, or we're voting you out," shouted Mr. Patel, my neighbor, who'd tipped me off about Karen's cleanup campaign. I sat in the back, arms crossed, playing the quiet neighbor. But I couldn't resist a jab. "Maybe if the HOA followed city regulations, we wouldn't be in this mess," I said, my voice calm but sharp. The room erupted in agreement, and Karen's face turned beet red, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. I bit back a smile. My department kept the pressure on, sending follow-up letters demanding more documents. The HOA scrambled, submitting half-baked reports that Sarah and I rejected for incompleteness. Each rejection bought me more time to let them stew. The inspection I'd scheduled revealed their irrigation system was worse than I thought, Licky. Pipes, wasting thousands of gallons. We cited it as a health hazard, further stalling their contract. The real beauty was watching the HOA implode internally. Karen's board turned on her, with whispers of a coup. The treasurer, a nervous guy, named Steve, admitted they'd ignored the city's notices for years, assuming their contract was grandfathered in. Residents started digging, finding my breadcrumbs about the HOA's negligence. A petition circulated to audit the HOA's finances, and Karen's allies began to jump ship. One night, I overheard two board members at the grocery store, muttering about Karen's mess, kept my head down, but inside I was dancing. This was more than revenge for my well-lit, was justice for every find. Every power trip, every neighbor bullied by the HOA's entitlement. The chaos wasn't just external. Karen's personal life took a hit. Her pristine front yard, once a model for HOA compliance, withered under the new water rates. Neighbors gossiped that she'd stopped hosting her weekly book club, too embarrassed by her brown lawn. I felt a pang of guilt. Families like Mr. Patel's were struggling with high bills, too. But I reminded myself this was temporary. The HOA needed to learn. As the weeks dragged on, the pressure built. Karen's emails to the city grew desperate, begging for a meeting. My department's response, drafted by me, was cold. Submit all required documents for review. They were drowning, and I held the lifeline. After 3 weeks of chaos, the HOA's empire was in tatters, and their arrogance finally cracked. A letter arrived in my mailbox, not the usual condescending notice, but a groveling apology signed by the entire board. They offered to restore my well, waive all related fines, and discuss further compensation. I read it on my porch, a grin spreading across my face. They weren't just sorry, they were desperate. The neighborhood's dying lawns, shuttered pool, and silent fountains had turned residents into a mob, threatening to vote out the board. Karen's reign was crumbling, and I'd orchestrated it all from the shadows. But I wasn't ready to let them off easy. They'd stolen something precious from me and Lily. And I wanted more than an apology. I wanted justice that stung. I replied to their letter, setting a meeting at the clubhouse. I walked in, head high, carrying a folder of their violations. For extra leverage, Karen avoided my gaze, her usual smirk gone, replaced by a nervous fidget. The new board treasurer, Mr. Evans, a quiet accountant, took the lead. "We'll cover the cost to rebuild your well, Jake," he said, voice strained, "and we'll waive all fines." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "That's a start," I said, "but your water contract's still on hold. The city needs full compliance, every upgrade." Their faces paled. They knew the bills were bleeding them dry, and residents were on the verge of revolt. I'd tied their salvation to my terms, and they had no choice but to comply. Behind the scenes, I worked with Sarah to finalize the audit. The HOA scrambled, submitting half-baked records that we rejected, citing missing details. Finally, they hired a contractor to upgrade their irrigation system and paid years of back fees. Only then did I greenlight their contract renewal, ensuring the city added stricter terms, no more loopholes. The well restoration took a week, and I watched as workers cleared the cement, reinstalled the pump, and tested the water. When the first stream flowed, Lily clapped, her smile brighter than the sun. "We're back, Daddy," she squealed, splashing her hands in the bucket. That moment was worth every sleepless night. Karen resigned a week later, citing personal reasons, but we all knew she'd been pushed out. The new board, led by Mr. Evans, was humbler, loosening rules on mailboxes and curtains. Pinewood's lawns greened again, but the HOA's reputation was scorched. Neighbors thanked me at barbecues, calling me the guy who tamed the beast. I shrugged it off, but inside, I was soaring. I'd turned their game against them, using their own arrogance to fuel their downfall. My well wasn't just restored, it was a symbol of fighting. It's back against bullies who thought they could trample us. I couldn't keep this story to myself. I uploaded it to my YouTube channel, sitting in my garden with the well bubbling in the background. "This is for anyone who's been bullied by an HOA," I said, recounting every step. Karen's smugness, the cement, my secret weapon at the water department, and the chaos that brought them to their knees. I showed footage of my garden, Lily's sunflowers, and the restored well, ending with a call to action: know your rights, fight back, and don't let entitled people steal your peace. The video blew up. Comments flooded in: "You're a legend, Jake. My HOA asked next." And viewers shared their own horror stories. One guy wrote, "You inspired me to check my HOA's contracts. Found violations." Another said, "This is why I subbed Epic Revenge." The video hit 100,000 views in a week. I felt like a neighborhood superhero. Standing in my garden, watering tomatoes with Lily, I reflected on the fight. It wasn't just about the well, it was about protecting what mattered. My daughter's dreams. Our independence and the right to live without fear of overreach. The HOA thought they could control us, but I showed them power comes from strategy, not bullying. Pinewood was quieter now, the board tiptoeing around residents. As I turned off the hose, Lily ran up, hugging my leg. "You fixed it, Daddy," she said. I knelt, smiling. "We fixed it, kiddo." On my channel's outro, I looked into the camera, the well sparkling behind me. "Don't mess with a dad's well," I said. "You'll end up high and dry."